lot about us. We are the lesser known in the psych world. So I'm going to just start a little bit about my background so I can kind of go chronological, and then I'll bring you up to date with what I do now. I'm actually originally from San Antonio, Texas, so Alaska's not my home. It's been now for almost 14, going on 14 years, but I'm originally from Texas. And I took a high school psychology class, just like you guys are doing right now. It was one semester. I took sociology one semester and psychology the second semester, and I just fell in love with the topic and the class itself. And so I went to college thinking I'm going to major in psychology. I had no clue what I would do with that or what I would do about it. I just liked the subject and went to school, got an undergrad, Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology from University of North Texas. And I know when I talk to people or talk to students, they always think, oh, 4 years of college and then graduate school, it all flies by really quickly, so don't ever sweat that. Whatever you're looking for, whatever your passion is, if it takes 10 years to go to school for it, do it, because it really flies by. After that, I thought, okay, now what? Anybody with a bachelor's degree in psychology, the only thing you do is go to graduate school or study some other field. The nice thing about psychology, though, it's a broad background because it's a study of human behavior. You're getting a lot of good information so that you can transfer into other fields if you're interested in just working with people. So you'll find a lot of times either lawyers or public relations, marketing, people appreciate people with a background in psychology because you have kind of a lot of broad skills. So I then went to Texas A&M, the Texas A&M in College Station, Texas, for graduate school. And there they had a combined program. So I didn't actually get a master's degree. You go straight through and get your doctorate. At the time, they didn't even give you a master's, but I think now they do. So I took a year off from undergrad, and then I went into A&M's program. And fortunately for me, A&M also had a federal grant to promote the development of bilingual school psychologists, so I am bilingual. I speak English and Spanish, which is another great marketable skill. If any of you are taking a foreign language and you're just kind of forcing your way through it, I just tweeted an article that the hottest job skill is bilingualism. So don't just take the class begrudgingly because somebody said it's going to help you in college. It can actually help you earn more money. I am then finishing that. I had to do a one-year internship. I'm sure we both did. Everybody has to do an internship when you finish your study. That's how I ended up in Nebraska. I came here to do an internship, a one-year internship with the Nebraska Internship Consortium in Professional Psychology. There's multiple sites. OPS was one of the sites, so I worked as a school psychologist. And basically, as a school psychologist, there's three primary things that we do. We do assessment, consultation, and intervention. Assessment is really testing to see if a student has a disability, and all of that is laid out through laws and regulations of what an educational disability, be that a learning disability or a health impairment that impacts their learning or other issues that would disrupt their learning and require the special education services to help students be successful. Consultation is basically working with students, parents, teachers to try to help students be more successful. So students that are struggling with anxiety or study skills or peer problems, any number of issues that are really just impacting their learning. It's trying to come up with different strategies to help students be successful. Then the intervention would be if I actually worked with a student, an individual or a small group of students to help build skills, build coping skills. Again, everything is aimed at improving student achievement, student success. And the school psychologists generally work in schools. Some can do private practice, private work, and just consultation, but the majority of the work we do is in schools, and it really focuses on that assessment role, and then those other two pieces also tie in. So for about 2.5 years, I was a school psychologist in 3 different schools. We travel around all of our materials, our rolling office. And then after 2.5 years, I became the coordinator of psychological services. So for the previous 9 years, I actually supervised all the school psychologists. So in my day-to-day, when I was a school psychologist, I traveled to different buildings, worked with students, teachers, and parents, And then as coordinator, I've been housed out of the TAC building, so then I had a group of staff that I oversaw and helped them with their role or their job. And that was great. I also had a chance to still do direct work, and I was saying I worked in a lot of the non-public schools, but I had not had a chance to come to Marion, so this is really nice for me to be able to actually walk in. Last year, there was a lot of restructuring. We have a new superintendent. We had an interim last year. We have a new one this year. So my position actually changed because my division moved to another area, and I am really doing a little bit more social work, if you will. I currently, in Student and Family Services, we focus on what are those external barriers that are really impacting students' learning. So homelessness is a big one, poverty, just difficult family dynamics, instability, attendance, behavior, all those things that really keep students from being successful. So in my current role, I'm really focused on how do we help address those kinds of things. So I work with all of our school social workers, which we have at the high school level, and a lot of our community agencies that provide what we call family support services. So it's basically a staff person who works with an entire family and tries to figure out, okay, what is everybody needing here in order for us to function better, to be more successful, and to get our needs met so that students can then do better in school. So I do a little bit more social work, if you will. The other part of my role is to really making sure we have enough mental health supports available for students. As you guys are aware, there's a lot going on in this world. Kids are facing a lot of things that years ago didn't have to think about, with so much exposure to media and life just kind of going at such a fast pace that that really impacts how students are able to function. And so we want to make sure that we have enough mental health support and supports not just for students but their families, so that everybody can do better. So my role is really focused on making connections for students and for families and making sure everybody knows what exists and then how to help. So when you ask what does my day look like, I have to laugh because it's always changing. We start out with a schedule. I start out with a really good schedule. Like today, I have a series of meetings after this. I am also in school working on another degree, which is kind of funny. And so I've actually been doing some work at an elementary school. I just left, kind of covering the building. But the day starts out with schedules of different meetings to talk about either different programs or people or students, and then things come up. So I will just say that as a psychologist or anybody who works with people, you have to be flexible, but you also have to be very organized, because when a crisis comes up, you have to stop, drop, and attend to it. But you still have to get those things on your list done. So some of this should sound familiar because your lives are kind of fluid right now. I know you have friends call you and say, hey, there's just an opportunity to go do this, and you still have a list of things that you need to do. Those skills are going to serve you well. You really do have to be organized and be ready to shift gears. I think one of the strengths that I have, and something you want to keep in mind when you're thinking about your field of study, is I can switch gears really well, and I can keep track of a lot of details. So when I served 3 different buildings, I would walk into one building, we'd talk about 3 or 4 students, and I'd be right there with, yep, that's so-and-so, and this is what's going on with so-and-so. I'd go to another building, and they'd talk to me about a whole other set of students, and I'd have to keep those details straight. So I think either people with psychology or people with ADHD, or we're just really sharp mentally, and I'd like to think we're just really sharp mentally. But we change activities quickly, we switch gears quickly, and we've got to bring all of our skills and knowledge to bear in every situation that we're faced with. So you really do have to think on your toes, so to speak. So day to day, I deal with any crisis that might come up. Otherwise, the schedule kind of just flows as it does. The other thing about being an administrator versus an employee, my staff had pretty set duty hours. Sometimes, occasionally, they might need to stay a little bit later or earlier. But when you become in a leadership position, duty hours kind of fly out the window. You do what it takes to get the job done. I used to get a lot of weekend calls. If you remember, whenever there's a death of a student or a staff member, they always say there's a team of counselors available. It would be my staff or myself that we would be part of that team that would be available. And so I would get the calls at any time and then have to make arrangements to have team there and to have materials and what to say and how to talk about it. There's very specific guidelines and things that we follow. So when you become an administrator or in any kind of leadership position, you kind of let go of that notion of duty hours. The job kind of always calls, takes precedence when it does. Again, when you're working with people, very different from working with numbers or programs or procedures, computers. When you're working with people, the things we do have that direct impact. Whether you address that student who's expressing suicidal ideation or not can have a huge impact on what goes on. So it's just something to keep in mind. But in the end, I love what I do.